On a crisp mountain morning, Sheriff Tom Hawkins taped a white notice to the front door of Gary Reeves' Victorian B&B.
You can't do this. The exemption's been valid since 1981.
Sorry, Gary. Orders from the county. I don't like it either.
Finally, someone's enforcing the rules around here.
You know this place was exempted back in 81. This is personal, isn't it?
Personal? I am just doing my civic duty. Your little hobby hotel is a code violation.
Gary, what's happening? We just got a call from the front desk saying we have to leave.
But we paid for the week. Where are we supposed to go?
As the Thompsons packed their car, Gary stood on the porch, alone. He reached into his vest pocket.
$14.6 million in tourism grants. Every year. And I know exactly where the hostility clause is buried.
That evening, in the empty B&B lobby, Gary picked up his vintage telephone.
Laura, it's Gary. I need to recuse myself from the upcoming review. My B&B just got shut down by a bogus HOA complaint.
Noted. But you are still required to submit your regional report. Anything we should flag?
Gary attached a file, the HOA's 47-page complaint log, and hit send.
The board will review this. Section 12 of the grant contract is very clear about hostility toward visitor economy businesses.
The State Tourism Board voted to open a formal investigation into the township's grant compliance.
I filed for a permanent revocation. That B&B will be a parking lot before Christmas.
Gary, I pulled the original exemption paperwork. This shutdown might not hold up in court, but the county's under pressure. Betty Whitfield's got friends on the board.
So the whole thing could be overturned. But what will the board find first?
A week later, the Tourism Board convened. Laura Benson opened a thick file.
47 separate complaints from a single HOA, all targeting the same B&B. Everyone dismissed. Under the grant terms, this pattern is documented hostility. I move. We subpoena the HOA's records.
After a short debate, the board voted unanimously to issue subpoenas and interview county officials. That afternoon, Betty Whitfield heard the news while leaving the HOA office.
Subpoenas? They're wasting their time. Our records are spotless. Let them dig.
But the laugh that followed was hollow. She'd never faced a state-level inquiry before. Later, Sheriff Tom asked Gary to stop by the county building.
Gary, the county attorney reviewed the exemption. It's solid. They might withdraw the shutdown before the hearing, but if the board finds something first, the whole township could lose its grants.
2 weeks later, the Tourism Board gathered for the final report. The room was silent.
The HOA's systematic targeting of a grandfathered lodging business constitutes documented hostility under Section 12. I move that all tourism impact grants, $14.6 million, be suspended for 10 years.
Hands rose. The vote was unanimous. No one spoke after the gavel fell. The next morning, a formal letter arrived at the township supervisor's office. The letter read, $14.6 million in tourism grants are hereby suspended for a period of 10 years, effective immediately.
This can't be. 10 years? Our downtown will be a ghost town.
She immediately called her staff. The town had no idea what was about to hit. That evening, Laura Benson made a private call to Gary at the darkened B&B.
So it's done. The town's going to lose everything because of one woman's obsession, and I am the one who had to pull the pin.
The Mountain Gazette hit stands Thursday morning. Front page, state revokes $14.6 million in tourism grants.
They can't do this. This town runs on summer people.
Everyone needs to be at the chamber tonight. This is an emergency.
At the township office, Patricia Lang's staff traced the suspension to a single clause, documented hostility toward visitor economy businesses. By late afternoon, a rumor spread through the coffee shops. The suspension was triggered by one HOA's harassment of a small inn.
If it's that Whitfield woman and her crusade against Gary Reeves, we're all paying for her grudge.
The emergency chamber meeting was set for 7. The town hall was already filling with furious shopkeepers.
We need answers. Who caused this, and how do we get the money back?
Patricia Lang, in the front row, looked down at the suspension letter. She knew the answer, but wasn't ready to say it publicly.
They're going to tear her apart when they find out. But it has to come out.
At the chamber meeting, Patricia Lang finally stepped to the podium. The room fell silent.
The grant suspension was caused by documented hostility, and it came from inside this town.
A reporter from the Mountain Gazette rose, waving a copy of the State Board's investigation report. The report identifies Betty Whitfield. 47 complaints, all targeting Gary Reeves, all dismissed.
That report is a sham. Gary Reeves got his friends on the board to destroy my reputation.
Your crusade just cost this town $14 million. That's not civic duty, it's sabotage.
I am calling for a class action lawsuit against Betty Whitfield and the HOA for tortious interference.
The hall erupted. Betty Whitfield stood frozen, her face pale, the crowd turning on her. The chamber voted unanimously to form a legal committee and retain an attorney. The town had found its villain, but that wouldn't bring the grants back. Now every shopkeeper was asking the same question: how long before they had to lock their doors for good? By Monday morning, Betty Whitfield had pivoted from defense to attack, spinning a new story for any reporter who'd listen.
Gary Reeves manipulated the tourism board. He's been planning this since I filed my first code complaint. This is pure retaliation.
That evening, Gary released a brief written statement through his attorney to the Mountain Gazette. I voluntarily recused myself before any evidence was presented. The board's decision was based solely on documented hostility, not personal influence. The next afternoon, State Board Chair Laura Benson addressed reporters to put the matter to rest.
At no point did Gary Reeves vote or deliberate on this matter. His recusal was immediate and complete. The hostility clause was triggered by the HOA's own complaint log.
On Main Street, Helen Davies spotted Betty walking toward her Lexus and marched over.
The whole town's losing its lifeline because you couldn't leave one man alone. And now you are blaming him?
Betty stormed off, but some neighbors exchanged uneasy glances. A few whispered support, but most turned their backs.
She's cornered now. That's when she'll make her biggest mistake.
The chamber's attorney reviewed the grant contract and delivered grim news. The hostility clause was bulletproof. There was no appeal. That evening, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Residents packed the small community room. A man in the back rose and pointed. "Resign, Betty. You've cost us everything."
I did my job. I enforced the rules. The state board overreacted. None of this is my fault.
The room erupted. Shouts overlapped. Chairs scraped the floor.
The board's censure is meaningless if you don't step down. Every business in town is naming you in the lawsuit.
The HOA board took a vote. They censured Betty Whitfield, but lacked the numbers to remove her as chair.
You can't force me out. I still have supporters.
But many of those supporters sat in stony silence, their faces betraying doubt. The meeting ended with Betty Whitfield still in charge, but the real power was draining away fast. The following week, 6 business owners filed a tortious interference lawsuit against Betty Whitfield and the HOA, naming her personally for punitive damages. A process server arrived at Betty Whitfield's front door 2 days later.
You are serving me? This is nothing but a witch hunt.
She called her attorney, voice shaking, but he had no good news.
The township is in crisis, but we won't leave our businesses without answers. The board will meet tonight.
That night, the township board convened. The topic: whether to recall the legal funding previously allocated to the HOA's defense.
We can't spend taxpayer money defending the very people who triggered this catastrophe. I move. We recall all legal support from the HOA.
Seconded. The chamber stands with this motion.
The vote passed 4-1. The HOA would now have to fund its own defense.
Now the real pressure starts. Betty can't hide behind the HOA's lawyers anymore.
3 days later, Laura Benson stood before cameras. The state had a path to restore the grants, but it came with a price.
To reinstate the tourism grants, the township must 1. Grant lifetime protection to Reeves B and B. 2. Carve out a tourism district. 3. Secure personal restitution from Betty Whitfield.
That evening, a private call reached Gary's darkened B&B. It was Laura.
Gary, the board has laid the framework, but we need your personal terms. What do you require?
Lifetime protection. A tourism district that can never be touched. And every cent of personal damages from Betty. Make it hurt. I want permanent protection. A tourism district carved out in perpetuity and personal damages from Betty. Non-negotiable.
The next morning, Patricia Lang faced the township board, the demands in hand.
We must pass a municipal protection ordinance, rezone a tourism district around the B&B, and pursue full restitution from Betty Whitfield.
A heavy silence fell over the room. The path back was clear, but it meant giving one man power over the town's future.
We don't have a choice. $14 million isn't coming back unless we meet every single demand.
The debate was immediate and vicious. Some board members called the terms extortion. Others saw no alternative.
We are not rewarding anyone. We are fixing a hostile act that this town allowed.
But the argument only grew louder. Then, from the audience, Betty Whitfield stood.
I will not pay $1. This is all Gary Reeves doing. He's the one who should be punished.
The room turned on her with a collective groan. Marcus Chen rose to his feet.
You filed 47 complaints, Betty. 47, and every single one was dismissed. You created this disaster. The state board didn't attack us. You did. Now you'll either pay restitution or watch your assets get seized in court.
Betty's face drained of color, but she refused to sit. Her grip on the chair arm was white-knuckled.
The board will recess. We need a consensus before we can vote on anything.
The room slowly emptied, but the pressure on Betty Whitfield had never been heavier. She sat alone, staring at nothing. A week later, a judge signed a preliminary asset freeze. Betty Whitfield wouldn't touch a dime. Garnishment notices hit every account. Her legal defense fund evaporated overnight. Her attorney called from the courthouse steps. No more filings. He was withdrawing. The HOA board didn't wait. That night, they voted anonymously to remove her as chair. The motion was simple. Betty Whitfield is no longer chair. No debate. No dissent. A process server drove to her house the next morning with the official removal notice.
Everything I built, gone. All because of that man's bed and breakfast.
She didn't scream. She just sank to the floor. The official paper crumpled in her hand. The foreclosure notices followed. Her house, once her castle, now belonged to the bank.
Now she understands. But the town still needs those grants.
The HOA, now under new leadership, notified the state board that they accepted every term, except Betty's personal restitution. That still hung in the balance. Patricia Lang drove to Betty Whitfield's house that afternoon, a single sheet of paper in her hand.
The township can't meet the state's conditions without you. The amount is clear. You refinance your house or we all lose.
Betty stared at the figure. Her hands trembled. The tears came before she could stop them.
All right. I'll do it. I'll call the bank.
An appraiser walked the property the next morning. The house was worth more than the damage demand, but not by much. The loan terms arrived by courier. $180,000. Her signature was all that remained. At the township board, Patricia Lang set the date. 3 days to vote on the municipal protection ordinance.
We can't delay any longer. The businesses are bleeding. Every day costs us.
Betty sat in her silent kitchen, the loan papers unsigned in front of her, the pen untouched. The township board convened one last time. The vote was brief and painful.
5-1. The municipal protection ordinance passes. Gary Reeves' B&B is now under lifetime protection and a permanent tourism district.
Betty Whitfield walked into Mountain Community Bank, the loan documents clutched in a trembling fist.
I've already lost everything else. Just give me the pen.
The bank issued a cashier's check for $180,000, payable to the Chamber's escrow account. By 4 o'clock, Patricia Lang had delivered the compliance package to the State Tourism Board office. Laura Benson read each page, then set her reading glasses down and picked up the phone.
All 3 conditions are satisfied. I am calling a special meeting. We vote on reinstating the grants in 2 days.
That evening, in the dark of the B&B, Gary's phone rang. It was Laura.
Now we wait. The board just has to say yes.
The State Tourism Board convened. 9 hands rose in silence. 9 votes to restore the grants. It was unanimous. Patricia Lang stepped to the microphones, her voice trembling for the first time in public.
The state has restored $14.6 million. Our town just got a second chance.
Main Street erupted. Business owners poured out. Cheering, Helen stood outside her cafe, tears streaming. Sheriff Tom drove to the B&B, a framed certificate on the passenger seat. He shook Gary's hand firmly.
This is your lifetime protection, Gary. No one can ever touch this place again.
The county rescinded the shutdown order that afternoon. The white notice was peeled off the door. That evening, Gary sat on the porch. The mountains hadn't changed, but his place in them had.
It was never about revenge. It was about proving that one man with the truth can't be buried.
Reservations flooded in. The B&B would be full by next week, and for the first time in months, Gary allowed himself to smile.
Every room is booked solid for the next 6 months. Never thought I'd see this day again.
Across town, a for sale sign sprouted on Betty Whitfield's front lawn, cardboard boxes stacked inside.
I can't stay here. Not after everything. I'll start over somewhere else.
The foundation goes in next week. 2 more rooms by spring.
Town workers installed tourism district signs along the road, the carved-out area around Gary's property, now official.
That district line is law now. Anyone who tries to mess with your place faces a criminal penalty.
Free pancakes for everyone. This town earned it.
The cafe overflowed. The whole town seemed to be there, sharing the relief.
This is what I was fighting for. Not just my business, but this.
The second cottage rose quickly. By late spring, it would be ready for its first guests. On a bright spring morning, a crowd gathered at the new cottage. A red ribbon stretched between 2 posts.
We almost lost our town. Today we acknowledge that the system failed, and we are grateful one man didn't.
Gary Reeves conducted himself with absolute integrity. This expansion is a testament to that.
With a clean snip, the ribbon fell. Gary's cottage was officially open. Within days, the reservation book was full. The new cottage was booked solid through autumn. Miles away, in a faded motel room, Betty Whitfield unfolded the morning paper. The headline read, "Tourism Revived. Mountain Town Celebrates New Expansion." The photo showed Gary, surrounded by smiling faces, cutting the ribbon. She stared without blinking.
They've moved on. I am a footnote. Nothing more.
The newspaper slid to the floor. Outside, a truck passed on the highway, and she didn't look up. The grants funded new wayfinding signs, a fresh coat of paint on storefronts, and banners that caught the mountain breeze. A local artist transformed a bare wall into a 5-story mural of the peaks, Mount Wilson blazing in gold and indigo. Tourist cars lined the curbs, and the sidewalks hummed with hikers, families, and couples holding gelato.
I haven't been this busy in 20 years. We just hired 2 more servers and a baker.
The cafe's new outdoor seating spilled onto the sidewalk, every chair filled by mid-morning.
It all came back. The sound of Main Street, The ringing bell on my door. I thought we lost it for good.
Visitation numbers are up 30% from before the suspension. The chamber can't even keep brochures in stock.
The printing press ran double shifts, spitting out glossy tourism brochures by the thousand. At the trailhead, backpackers adjusted their straps and headed into the aspens. The woods were alive again.
One person's obsession almost killed a town. One person's patience brought it back. I just kept the faith.
A young family pulled into the B&B driveway, children tumbling out with backpacks. The bell on the front desk chimed.
Welcome to the Reeves Inn. You are family now.
After they settled, Gary paused by the fireplace mantel, where a black and white photograph of his grandfather stood.
He'd hate the fight, but he'd love the peace that followed. The short version? A HOA chair tried to shut us down. The state board noticed.
The guest chuckled and shook his head. Gary handed over the keys with a smile.
This place isn't just a business. It's proof that fairness can still win.
As dusk fell, he stepped onto the porch. The streetlights flickered on down Main Street. From somewhere, he heard music drifting up. A fiddler at the pub. The town was alive. He rocked back in his chair, letting the night settle around him. It felt right. Months later, the mountain town looked like a painting. Every parking space was full, every shop door swinging.
Morning, Gary. Town hasn't been this happy in 30 years.
Betty Whitfield's old house had a new family in the yard, a young couple planting a maple where her Lexus once parked. At night, both the B&B and the new cottage glowed like two lanterns on the ridge, visible from every corner of town. In the end, Gary didn't need revenge. He just needed the system to see what it had been ignoring. One woman's 47 complaints had once threatened to close a whole town. But one man's truth had opened it forever. The grants were restored, the B&B protected for life, and a small mountain innkeeper had become proof that civic karma is real. He poured himself a coffee and watched the sunrise, the mountains still holding their ancient peace. Inside the B&B, the reservation book was full. A new note hung on the wall, since 1981 and forever after. And as the next car pulled up the drive, Gary Reeves picked up the keys, ready to welcome another guest. The seasons turned. Autumn painted the hillsides and brought new visitors from every corner of the country. Gary's cottages stayed full. The reservation book never had a blank page. Helen's Cafe became the heart of Main Street, her laughter echoing past closing time. Sheriff Tom retired, but not before tipping his hat one last time to the innkeeper who saved his town. The tourism district signs weathered a little, but they stood firm, just like the man they protected. Betty Whitfield started a small bookkeeping service 2 states away. No power, no crusades, just numbers. On a quiet evening, Gary sat alone on his porch, the mountains black against a purple sky. He thought about his grandfather. He thought about the guests who'd come and gone. He thought about the fight, but mostly, he thought about how the truth, given time, always finds the light. And as the stars came out, one by one, Gary Reeves smiled, knowing the town was finally, truly home. The reservation book lay open on the front desk, every line filled with names from across the country. Gary closed the book and walked to the fireplace, where a familiar black and white photograph still stood.
You were right, Granddad. The bastards didn't win.
Outside, snow began to fall, dusting the peaks and the eaves of the old Victorian. From the hill, the town looked like a postcard, every street alive, every street alive, every home lit against the cold. The cottage and the inn glowed side by side, beacons of a second chance earned the hard way. In the end, it wasn't just a victory for one innkeeper, It was a reminder that sometimes the system, when forced to look, still knows right from wrong. The lifetime protection certificate hung on the wall, its gold seal catching the lantern light. Gary poured a final cup of coffee and sat by the fire, listening to the quiet of the night. The fight was over, and up on the ridge, the lights of the Reeves Inn and Gary's cottage burned steady into the night, a promise, a home, forever.